All right, so we're going to quickly go over the outline. We'll go over the ARCNet system use. What do we use it for? We're going to hit on the basics. And I call these the basics because these are just things you should be aware of when utilizing the system. These are helpful places you can go to find out information on your own project. Then we're going to go into actually creating those reports, that project progress report in your financial report. Then we'll go over the certification of those reports by your authorized representatives. And then we'll talk about how to monitor for the status of the report. When am I going to get my reimbursement, and how do I track my expenditures? And then there's just a few additional points that I want to bring out at the very end, just to keep everybody aware of what, how things can happen or not. So we'll jump right in here. The ARCNet system, we use it for the grant and the budget review. So our ARC and the LDD reps, we use this to monitor the progress of your reports. I can go in and see how projects are occurring and implementing, and if they're hitting roadblocks or they're just not able to get over them. This is a great way for me to be able to help somebody, as well as ARC can jump in and help somebody. So we use this ARCNet system for providing technical assistance support in a lot of ways. The grantee uses this system for tracking the approval of your submitted reports, your performance measures, your expenditures, and tracking your reimbursements. You also, and most importantly, use this for reporting your progress report, your financial reports, getting those inputted into the system, and then having them certified. And then finally, the system is really good for submitting those reimbursement requests, making sure you get your expenditures. So this system is not only for reviewing current projects, it's also for reviewing past projects. And it is for also making sure reports are filed and getting that money that you have already spent on the project reimbursed. So there's a lot going on this slide. I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on it, but I do want to point out some things. So as I showed you here on this right-hand side, this gray block, this is your sign-on. Everybody has the same block that you're going to see when you go to sign on. Pretty standard. When you sign on, you'll be given this block here to the far left. And I know this is very small, so bear with me. You don't need to read a lot of this. I just want more of a visual recognition once you get into the system. There is only a matter of a few things that you can do at this point. So there's a top line here that says, let me show you how to sign your award, which by this point you should have done that once you're getting into the system. So you don't need to see that. You don't need to do that. But if you are new, you will need to do that to sign on. So once it's approved, you'll be given that opportunity. There are 4 opportunities or 4 other items that you could click on underneath there. It doesn't matter which one you click on, they're all going to take you to the same place. Now, that has been my experience, that has been everybody else's experience, and that's one of those quirky things with this system that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it really doesn't matter which one you click on, it's going to take you to the same thing. If you go to, and what I would have done on this one, this is Jen's. So this is her vision. When she looks at her interface and the ARCNet system, this is kind of what Jen is going to see in this middle block here. And there are 2 programs for her to click on. And I'm just going to take this first one as an example. And this is what I have blown up here in this bottom block. And what I want to show you is when I look at this interface, when I see this page, there's some important information here that you should be taking note of. One is your ID, project ID. That is a 2-letter, 5-number ID, project ID. Every project will have it. Now, some of them will start with an NY and then 5 numbers. Some will start with a PW. Those are our power projects. And this one, in this case, starts with IS because it's our Inspire grant. It doesn't matter what the 2 letters are. It's more of those 5 numbers that is the point in question. The other thing I can see here is my project title. This is the name of my project. So when you reach out to your ARC coordinators, don't reach out to them to talk about your project title, because they're not going to necessarily know that. They're going to know that project ID number. I also can see here who is my current coordinator. Your coordinators, you may have the same coordinator for the entire length of your project. In some cases, you might get a project coordinator, you might get 3 different ones for the entire process. So always look in first to see who your coordinator is before you reach out to ARC with any issues. And then the final piece I just want to point out is the fiscal year. A lot of times people will submit an application in 1 year, but it may sit at Department of State for a year or more, and then goes to ARC and it might sit for another year or 2. This fiscal year is the year of your project. It doesn't matter when you submitted to Southern Tier A or Department of State, doesn't matter, none of that. This is the year that we will all be referencing from this point forward. So
projects shouldn't sit there, but it happened with the pandemic.
projects shouldn't sit there, but pandemic does hit. So when you are reaching out to your ARC coordinator, I just want to point this out because this is something the ARC has asked me to always share with every new awardee. Your email is going to be as simple as you're going to reach out to your coordinator. And then in the subject line is only going to be your project ID. And in this case, as I showed you in the last example of the Inspire grant, it's IS-20241. And that's the only thing I'm going to put in that subject line. I'm not going to put anything else there. I'm not going to say, put this project ID and then say, need help, or this ID need an extension, or budget questions. I'm only going to put this ID. Keep in mind, your ARC coordinators have somewhere around 75 active projects at any one given time. This is how they feel it's easiest for them to get in and get to your problem that you're dealing with at this moment. If you put all that other additional information in there, it tends to bog down to where they can't seem to locate necessarily correspondences or keep them in order. This is a request by them. I'm sharing that request, and it will make your life a lot easier if you follow this. So now we're going to talk about your the contacts for your project, and these are key. There are many places, or there's different places, I should say, that you could put contacts for your project. You'll see that. We'll show you later where they are. This, and I'm showing you this on this. I hope everybody can see it. I hope it's not too small. But across your horizontal, you'll have a bunch of tabs here. This is your contact tab. It's in pink. Every time you change to a different tab, it changes pink most times. Some of them don't change. It's another quirk with the system. So on the contact tab page, there is an authorized representative, there is a primary contact, and there are additional contacts. The authorized representative should be the lowest position while still having contracting capability within your organization that's affiliated with the project. And this is key because a lot of times people will want to put presidents, CEOs, legislative bodies. The problem is if they are so far removed that they don't remember passwords, sign-ons, or don't remember to go in and do this, you're going to be struggling to get your reports filed on time. So it's really important that that position, it doesn't have to be, at this point, it doesn't have to be, it just has to be whoever's the lowest possible position with contracting capability. And that's the key here. Now, the authorized representative can change up your primary contacts, and they can add additional contacts. The primary contact in the project should be the individual who knows this project inside and out. They're probably going to be the individuals that are going to do the reporting. They are really well-versed in what's happening, boots on the ground, but not necessarily implementing of the project. But they are definitely involved in the reporting process. The additional contacts can be additional staff members who help to fill out the reports. They can fill out some of the financial, they can fill out the narrative. Now, the additional contacts have limited capabilities, and we have found that different interfaces have different authority to input contact or input information or to edit that information. The primary has the ability to do the editing and the inputting, and it's the authorized representative is the only entity that can certify your reports. If you're going to change any of these positions out, the authorized representative should only be changed by ARC. And this is key, and here's why. When that authorized representative gets changed, it will send an email immediately to ARC and to New York State Department of State. And if they didn't know this was going to happen, all of a sudden it sends up red flags to everybody. What's going on with this project? So if ARC does the change, they generally will reach out to Department of State in advance and let them know they're just changing out representatives. It's not, everything's, okay, and we're good with the project. The authorized representative can change to primary contact. Primary contact, if they're still active, can change out to another primary contact, and primary contacts and authorized representatives can add additional contacts. So this is your contact page, and this is where if we don't hear anything from you, when your reports are late, we want to reach out to you for any reason, this is where the ARC staff and myself would go to get that information as to reach out to you. So make sure this is correct. And please use only this tab for your contacts for your project. Location of service area. Again, I'm on if you notice, we're on the location tab. Down here, we're seeing the different, and I did, just so everybody's aware, I did reach out to DCMO BOCES and I got permission to use their screen. Not sharing everything, but I wanted to share some of their screens. They've done a great job of keeping it in order. So the location, we have their location, that their project. Here's key. So sometimes your organizational service area is going to be different than your project service area. It may be larger, maybe smaller. It's important to remember that your project service area is the only area in which the project activities, your performance measures, and your project expenditures would be related to. You cannot expend outside that area as far as funding. Your performance measures gained outside that area will not be counted, and any activities that are occurred back at that point are not to be part of your reporting system. So, and that's important. Some of you, such as county planners, where you're doing strategic plans, I understand you're going to be that same service area. But with Binghamton University and some of our some of the other individuals that are doing programs, their project area may be very different than their traditional service area, and they need to be aware of this. Again, these are all areas you should be checking out once approved so that you can verify this is correct. If it's not correct, you should be speaking to your ARC coordinator and saying, I need this amended. Next, I want to take you to the Documents tab. Now, here's a tab that most people don't go to, but it's a really important tab to spend some time in. Here, in this tab has all the approved documentation for your project. It has your approved application, your project budget, and any other amendments that may have been approved for your project, such as an extension for if you down the road, if you needed an extension, that memo would be in here providing that extension, that approval. The other thing that we want to really point out to you is, I'm sure many of you have had to do some type of an adjustment, whether it's narrative or budgetary, or you had to provide additional documentation for your project. Your application, when it was provided to Southern Tier 8, may have morphed a little bit different times over the last couple of months. So your project, the project that you submitted to us is going to be different than what is approved. It is always important to go into the ARCNet system, pull down that approved application, not the application you sent us, but the one that's on the ARCNet system, because that's the one that your project will be held to. And that also goes for the budget. So budgets can change and have changed from the time they were developed until the time they're actually approved. You're always going to be wanting to work off from the approved budget in the documentation tab. If it does not match the one that you believe you should be working off from, again, reach out to your ARC coordinator and get that clarified. Reporting, the reporting tab. This is probably this for me is always the first tab I go to anytime I'm helping anybody, assisting anybody, or I'm looking up a project to see what's going on with this project. This tab really gives me a lot of information. One, I'm going to look for the current end date. I'm going to make sure I have lots of time before it expires. Once this date passes, this system can and does lock up, and it doesn't allow you to do any reporting. It also doesn't allow you to do any reimbursement requests. So you always want to make sure you're within that extended, your end date. The next thing you need to do is look at the next reporting period, or what we call the current reporting dates. You're going to want to make sure that you write these down. This right here is telling me exactly when I'm doing my report. This is the timeline that I need to be speaking to in my activities. When they are accomplished, in this example, it's October 3rd through 2022 through January 28th, 2023. I'm only going to speak to those activities that happened within that time frame. I'm not going to talk too much about what happened previously. I am going to share a little bit, and there's a section 4 about what I will future be working on, but this date is really an important time stamp, and you need to grab that up. You'll need that for your reporting. The other thing you keep in mind is the next report due date, and you see that right here. This is the date that your report is expected to be received by. So when you're going to go in to do your progress and your financial reports, always look up and write down these 2 dates, because you will need them when you're setting up your financial report and your progress report. It'll ask, what reporting period are you doing the report for? And I want to show something else. And sometimes we get a little zealous. Some people get a little zealous. They know that in this example, if you look, January 28th happened on a Saturday. So if your staff was like, I can complete this on Friday afternoon, get my report in because I've been filling it out all along, you still can't submit until the 28th has passed. The system won't allow you. You've got to get beyond January 28th before it will allow you to do that report. So now we're going to move into creating the reports. Now, just a couple of things I want to point out first. So when you get into your system, I want to point out something that it does happen occasionally. You see how on this one project, we have the financial report payment and the progress report tabs, but down on this project, we do not. They're both open, but this one does not have it. When you don't see those 2 tabs, it means one of 2 things. It means either your organization has not submitted their ACH direct deposit form, or you just need to have ARC activate those 2 tabs. So regardless of when you see that you don't have those, first thing you should do is reach out to your own staff to see if that ACH form was submitted, and was it submitted to who it was supposed to receive it. And if that was done, then reach out to your ARC representative, your coordinator, and ask to have those 2 tabs activated. If you do not have those tabs, you're not going to be able to submit your reports online. There's no way for you to do that. So now we want to set up for our progress report. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that you have your horizontal tabs, but each one of these tabs has a vertical tab. They have vertical tabs that go with them. So using that current reporting period, remember that December 3rd, 2022 through January 28th of 2023, you'll need to enter in here in the current period start date. Once you enter those 2 dates in, there will be a blue button, just like this next or last. There will be a blue button somewhere around here that you can click to save it. If you do not save it, it's not going to keep that information, and it's not going to let you continue. The other the other point that I want to make is if you see these red messages, you definitely want to correct these anytime you can. And this is exactly what this red message is saying. Missing current report or current period dates. So we need to enter them in. Also, forecast period start date, forecast period end date. Never enter anything on forecast dates. Never. It'll throw all sorts of error codes and we won't be able to submit. Filling out the progress report, interim report. So if you notice, we did our progress report setup. We put in our dates, which will fill in these two dates for you automatically. Whoops, let me go back. It'll fill these two dates in for you automatically once you do that. We're going to skip over the project staff because again, if you change the contacts in these tabs, they do not autofill back to your original contact page. So the contact page, which is this tab right here, is really the only tab you need to be entering your staff into the system. We always want to create your progress report in Word or any other type of document similar to Word, any type of software that's similar to Word, and then copy it over. And you'll have to use Control-C, Control-V for Word to paste it in. The formatting it won't look pretty, but it will have all the information in there. If you choose to use the system that's here, there will be a block here that you can actually enter the information in. But any of you that are familiar with like Blackboard or some of the other types of software, they're very hard to control and manage the formatting of the reports. It's easier to do the reports very nicely in Word and then copy and paste them over into each section. Background. This can be the same information each time unless you've had a major change to your project. It's up to you if you choose to use it, but I keep the same background information for the report throughout the entire program because it really is the background of the project. This is what we intend to do with it. I'm not changing that up report to report. This is what we want to do with this project. Activities. What you're going to list in this section here is literally what activities occurred during that reporting period that you're currently working under. So what all you did, and what we want to do is be looking at our time frame, our work plan from our original application. We want to look at that and make sure that we're doing what we said we were going to be doing during the period which we said we were going to be doing it. Now, there may be additional activities, or there may be a case where you can't yet do some of those activities, and that's okay. Just list what you did actually get accomplished during that time frame. Project outcomes. You're going to provide a narrative to what numbers have been accomplished. So you always want to identify this many businesses were served, or this many businesses were improved, or this many workers and trainees were served, or this many workers and trainees were improved. You always want to identify the number, but then how did you get to that number? What took place to make that happen? And some of it will be reiterating what was in activities, but some of it will be more information that occurred along the way. So you definitely want to make sure that you're always putting that number in there. It's a great reference point for you because remember, you're going to be going back. It's going to be every 120 days that you'll be reporting, and sometimes that information isn't going to be as clear. Problems encountered. Be honest and share the challenges that you encounter, the barriers that you hit when you're doing your project. We often use ARC as well as Southern Tier 8. We use those barriers and how you navigate through them. We use them to help guide other projects in the future. So the more honest, the more open you are about what you're challenged with and how you are navigating those challenges will help us guide future projects. And that's the whole point of ARC, is that we want to be able to replicate projects and be able to serve a bigger region. So try to always be honest and upfront. And I will tell you, a lot of times folks, especially during COVID, put, COVID was the problem, but there was no they never provided a way how they were working around it. And that was where we started stepping in saying, well, there's ways to get around this. We just have to help you do that. So always try to provide how you're navigating that challenge to get around it. And then upcoming activities, again, looking at your timeline, your work plan, what are you planning to do in the next 120 days? And you may identify additional projects or different additional activities that have to happen. We often see projects do not go as planned. They morph, they change, new things come in, things no longer are relevant, things happen. We understand that. So make sure that you're addressing all of that and giving us a clear guideline as to what is happening with your project, good and everything else. Make sure you hit that save button. Again, this is a reviewer's interface, so I don't have the save button, but you're going to click on a save button after you've entered all that information in there. We're going to move down from the interim report to the cumulative impacts. We're going to enter in all of the different numbers, how much we've achieved in this last period. If it's zero, it's zero, but please enter whatever that number may be and hit your save button. Remember, cumulative measurements here do not add up. They will not add in what you just entered until it's been approved at ARC. So you won't see this number jump once you've entered it and saved it. Also, a really strong reminder I have for everybody is on this screen, you will all have output notes and outcome notes. This is the description of how you will achieve that output or that outcome. And it seems like a simple enough thing to know up front, but I will assure you that once you get into the meat of the project, implementing it, and you bring other partners in on it, there will be confusion as to what was defined as a business served, if that's what you're doing, or a business improved, or an individual served, or an individual improved. And so these notes are here to remind you of what constitutes each of those definitions. Again, county planners, as you are working on your strategic plans, you have a plan. If that's your only outcome or your only output, that's it. There probably will be nothing more than that. And that's fine. So you will be zero until the very end when it's complete. And that actually is, we're at this point with our progress report, we're ready for it to be reviewed by the authorized representative. So now we're going to switch over to the financial report payment. And the first thing we're going to jump to, even though I know we can start at the top, we're going to jump down to the project budget. This should really be set up initially when you first are awarded. When you have your project awarded to you, you've got that award letter, you got your start date, you really should go in and you should fill out all of these columns. And you'll see there's the different descriptors of the categories, and there's ARC dollars, there's other federal, state, local. So you should fill all of these out, make sure that it mirrors the approved budget for your project. Once you have that, click your save. Now your project is set, your budget's set for you. So we're going to go to the financial report payment, financial report setup. So now we're going to go back up to the top. There's a lot going on this page, so bear with me. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is these two rectangular boxes. When you filled out on the progress report your current reporting period, it should carry over to your financial, but it doesn't always happen. In this case, we have this error message that says it does not have the current reporting periods in there. You can see one carried over, but not the other. What you need to do is make sure that you have both of them in there and that they mirror the progress report, which also mirrors the report tab dates for this current reporting period. The next thing you would do is you're going to address the type of financial report that you'll be doing. Is this an interim or is it a final? You'll all be doing interim until you reach that final, ready to close out. You'll just continue that interim. In most cases, the interim will always be there until the end. The next piece you'll do is select your payment request. There are 3 types of payment requests. There is the no payment. So we're really just going to be either sharing with ARC match that we've spent on the project, but we're not ready to ask for reimbursement, or nothing has been done with the project, so nothing has been spent. The second type is reimbursement only. When that says that reimbursement is also, you will show the match and the reimbursement. And then the third type, which we do not, we ask all of our applicants to not use, because in New York State and at Southern Tier 8, all projects that are moved forward are because they have secured their funding. So there's no reason that we should be seeing anybody ask for an advancement on their projects. And that third option is both reimbursement and advancement. We shouldn't be seeing that. So, and I will tell you that if you do ask for the advancement, before it's approved, they will come out to each of the partners and let us know that you've asked for this and are we okay with it. New York State generally is not okay with it. That's why we chose these projects. They have their match secured. So it's really going to be either the no payment, so we're just letting you know what we spent on it, so it's just our match, or nothing's happened with it, or it's going to be the reimbursement and the match. Again, we're going to click on that save button so we're ready to go ahead. This has now been set up and we can go to the next period. Again, do not put anything under the forecast. If you do this, you'll get all sorts of error codes and you won't be able to submit. So actually filling out the financials. This is a little aggressive too. A lot going on here. So we've moved from the setup tab. We've already set up our budget. We did that initially when we first got awarded. We're going to move right down to the current period costs. Now on my page as a reviewer, I don't have any ability to change anything, but here's a page from an applicant where you can see, you can actually click on each one of these and fill it in for each of the different categories, whether it's an ARC personnel or whether it's something else for state, whatever the case may be. You would fill this out based on the current expenditures that you're seeking to report this period. Once you have done that, you're going to click the save button and make sure you save that information. Now your financial report is also ready for review by your authorized representative. So at this point, your authorized representative should be notified by someone within your staff to let them know that the reports are ready. And they now can go in and they can review both the progress report and the current period cost to verify the information is correct. They're agreeable to it. If they're going to start with the financial report. Again, the system has this quirky thing where some projects, it requires a financial report to be done before the progress report. So we always have everybody start with the financial report. They're going to go in to the 270 or the standard form 270 form tab. This is on your financial report payment tab. They can go down to this sub tab. All of the information will all be filled out. They will not have to do any of that. There will be a gray button that says certify in this little corner here. Once they click that, your report will be time and date stamped. And that's how we know it's been signed. So if someone were to reach out to me, and I have had this, where applicants or awardees have reached out and said, I don't know what happened. We did our reports, but nothing's happening to them. And I go to this page, I know exactly what's happening. If I don't see this date and timestamp, I know that the authorized representative hasn't signed on and submitted this or certified it. So that's what has to happen. Once they do that, your financial report is now submitted. It's gone, it's done. Certifying the progress report. They're going to go to the progress report tab. They're going to go to the standard form project progress report form tab. All this information again will be all filled out for them. And I can't tell you where the certified button is, whether it is off here to the left or right under here where the save would be, but there's going to be a certified button similar to the financial report. They're going to click on it. And again, it's going to do this date and time stamp so that you have record of actually making that submission. Now both reports are submitted and they're pending at ARC. We have everything completed that we needed to do for that. So how do we know when they've been approved? If you go to, I have both on here, both the financial and the progress, so you can see them side by side. Both of them have an ARC report approval tab. You can go to that tab and look at the status. You're either going to see pending, approved, or rejected. Sometimes the ARC coordinator, there are ARC coordinators that like to do their corresponding with applicants or awardees through the ARCNet system versus through email. So don't always assume that they're going to be reaching out to you via email to tell you there's a problem with your report. You should be going in and checking this system after you've submitted, and you should be looking to see if there's any comments and if it was approved or if it was rejected. So pay attention to this. If there's a rejection, there's always a comment as to why it was rejected. In some cases, it was just a matter of they need you to go back and do the financial report, submit this one before they do the progress. That has happened. Now we've checked on it. Maybe we know that it got approved. We want to know when we're going to get paid. So you can go to your financial tab and scroll down to the payment sub tab. And down here will show you exactly when they expect your payments to hit your bank account, how much it will be, and for what time period it was in regards to. So you'll be able to track this. Now, I will give you one bit of information. We have found at Southern Tier 8 that when it says, and this example is October 31st, 2022, on October 31st, 2022, we could have went in and looked at our bank account, it would not be there. But if we went in November 1st, it was there on October 31st. Don't really know why, but it is that way. But you'll see this before that date happens. Usually it's about 2 weeks out. It takes 2 weeks to process. So if we know it's coming, and now we want to know, well, we got to track our expenditures. We know we've sent in these types of payments. How do I know under which categories each of these dollars were spent? If you go to your, and I'm going to go back one step. Well, no, it's in the Documents tab. If you go to the Documents tab, there will be your certified financial reports. Once they're approved at ARC, they automatically get uploaded into that Documents tab. On the last page of the financial report will be this reimbursement table, and this will show you where you established where money should go. So you can track it. That's the best system. Unfortunately, there's not a cumulative expenditures tab. I've actually talked to ARC about this to make sure I wasn't missing it. And they said, unfortunately, there's not. The best advice they have is to always go back to your certified financial reports in the Documents tab and just look at each of them and track it yourself. So the last thing I'm going to bring up is some additional points for the ARCNet system. Anytime there's a red message or red messages on the Progress tab or the Financial Report tab, you're not going to be allowed to submit or certify those reports. You've got to correct that error code. And a lot of times what we have to do is save it, exit out, come back in, and that will be cleared. If you just save it, it isn't going to clear the code. You've got to get out of the system and then come back. The second thing I would say is have patience. The ARCNet system is incredibly slow, and especially when you're working through the financial report payment tabs, it's excruciatingly slow. So be patient with it. If you start clicking on all sorts of tabs, you're going to spend time going through each of those tabs before you can get to where you really need to go. So be patient, click once, wait for it to happen. Don't delay in submitting reports. They will quickly pile up on you. submit for the time period, even if there has not been anything or much at all that's happened, you are required to submit every 120 days. So make sure that you do that. If you don't, you're going to have to create one, submit it, wait for approval, and then go on to the next one. We actually had an applicant who did this during the COVID timeframe, and it took them almost a year to get caught back up. And that's just a lot of wasted time on everybody's part. Projects that are not awarded, as Jen pointed out in the very beginning, projects that are not awarded, this is a great time for you to really discuss, do you need to change your timeline or your start date? Or is there something I need to change with the project name? This is a great time to reassign that authorized representative. Now, at this point, the current authorized representative has to make that case. They have to be the one to request that. But this is a great time to get that fixed now before you have to do your first report. Nothing like having to ask an authorized representative and they don't have any clue what you're talking about or their sign-on or their passwords because they can never remember them. And then you're waiting for this to be fixed before you can move forward. So I'm going to, if I can.
See it.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out how I can, we're going to go to questions. I'm going to end the slideshow and I'm going to